Hey guys, I'm Misty Buck, president of Miss Inc., and I want to welcome you to another Marketing Monday. So today we have a really special guest. So we have been working out dates to get Dre Baldwin here. We finally got him here. We finally nailed him down and found some time in his schedule for him to be here. Dre is the founder of Work on Your Game. I will let him explain what that is, but he's really incredible. He is a former professional basketball player. And what he did is he started making YouTube videos really in the infancy of YouTube. And he has built this massive empire just starting from posting these basketball training videos, right? Basketball training videos. And he'll tell you a little bit more about that. He has a very, very popular podcast and all kinds of systems and programs and things. And he's just really sought after to work with. And I'm personally very excited to welcome him here today because I found him through his podcast when I was searching for podcasts on the topics of mental toughness, discipline, stuff like that. And I came across his podcast, and then lo and behold, found out he lives in Miami and have met up with him a couple times. And actually, Dre works with me as well. So they say everybody should have a coach and a consultant. Dre is my guru. So I'm super excited to have him here today. I'm going to let Dre go ahead and introduce himself, and we'll get into it.
Definitely. Well, thank you for the warm introduction, Misty.
You're welcome.
And everything she said is true. My background is as a professional athlete, coming from the city of Philadelphia. Originally, went to a Division III school, which is a level that most athletes don't even think about going pro, let alone make it pro. But I was able to hustle my way in with a little bit of hustle, some hard work, and of course, talent mattered as well, and a little bit of luck. And while doing that, started publishing my basketball videos to this new platform called YouTube. This is in 2005, before YouTube became YouTube. And that's where people originally started to know me. After a few years of doing that, basketball players started asking me about the mental side of the game. For example, Dre, what keeps you showing up to the gym every day, even when you don't have a playing contract, when you're a free agent in between offers playing professionally? Or how do you have the same confidence in a live game with 1,000 people watching that you have in an empty gym when nobody's watching? Or what kept you even showing up playing basketball when you got cut from your high school team 3 years in a row? Or how'd you even get started with this stuff, getting yourself known out there on the internet? Because after a few years of publishing these videos, I started to build up a little bit of a buzz. People started to know me a little bit on the internet for the content I was publishing. So people started asking me, Dre, how do you even start to get yourself known? So in answering those questions, I created the foundation of this framework, this philosophy that I have now called Work on Your Game. It's based on 4 principles. Discipline, show up every day and do the work. Confidence, put yourself out there boldly and authentically. Mental toughness, keep showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success hasn't happened yet, and personal initiative, making things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. So now, as a full-time CEO of my company, I stopped playing ball in 2015. Now we work with entrepreneurs, people like Misty, business professionals, and athletes on taking the mental tools you need to succeed in sports, teaching how those same tools apply to business and life. Now, of course, there's a lot I skipped over there, but I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we can totally get into it. There's so many awesome things. So when you talked about getting started with YouTube and into infancy, if I recall correctly in your story, you were saying that you were just starting to post videos about basketball training and skills, right, to help other people out. And then eventually people started saying, hey, this is something that I think you could sell or make a business out of. And a light bulb sort of went off in your head, right? And so you want to talk to us like kind of a little bit about that and how you have, you're even an author. So you have all these things that have sort of transpired out of those YouTube videos, right? Those humble beginnings. So how did you get here?
Well, what happened was, I was publishing the basketball stuff. Initially, the reason that I put the first video on YouTube was because I went to this event called an exposure camp, and that was like a job fair for athletes. That's when I was trying to play professional basketball, and I played well at this exposure camp / job fair. So the footage from that camp was on this thing called a VHS tape. You remember those, Misty?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I had this VHS. All right. So I had this VHS tape, and I knew, we all know VHS tapes from back in the day. Those millennials who are listening to this, ask your parents or your uncles, they'll tell you, or you can Google it. But if you break a VHS tape, that footage is pretty much gone. So I took that tape to an audio visual store and got it put on a data CD, and I put that CD in my desktop computer in my parents' home and uploaded it to this new site, and that site happened to be YouTube at the time. And that was only just so I could safe keep that footage of myself playing basketball, because I knew that was the best footage I had of me playing well. So I put it up there for myself on YouTube. It wasn't for anybody else. But what happened is people found that video and started watching it, and they started commenting and saying, hey, can you make videos about other stuff? What about dunking? What about dribbling? What about shooting? So I said, all right, I go to the gym every day anyway, so why don't I just bring my little $100 camera and film myself, and I'll just throw the videos up on YouTube. Didn't really edit them or anything, just put them on YouTube. So after a few years of that, when I started to have more of an audience, and I started putting videos up every day. So I had so many videos, maybe a couple hundred. Players would say, well, Dre, I want to train like you, but you have so many videos, I don't know which one to watch first. So can you make a program that kind of explains what to start with? And I said, I'll do that, but you're going to have to pay for it because I'm giving you value. You got to give value back. And they said, we'll pay as long as it doesn't cost too much. Now, this is all happening in the comment section on YouTube.
Right.
This is back when you could have a civil conversation in the comment section.
This is when you
don't do this now. Okay, so if you're watching this, don't get in the comment section on YouTube and start conversing with people. I would not advise it. But back then, that worked, and I started creating programs. The first program I created was a $4.99 PDF document. It was basically a dribbling program, 7-day dribbling program. And that's how I became an entrepreneur. That's how I got started. And it was really just about being open to hearing what my audience had to say,
right,
answering their questions, and then just supplying what they were asking for. And that was it. That's how I got started.
Right. And I think that, for a lot of small business owners today, people who are watching this, they're constantly thinking about their marketing, their messaging. What do I do? There's so many different aspects of it. And I think it really starts with those things, like know who your audience is. Listen to their questions. Just listen to them. And we talk about that a lot, right? When people are trying to come up with content, we say one of the top tips I give is listen to their questions, to their frequently asked questions. And that's going to tell you what they're looking for so that then you know how to package your messaging or come up with a product like Dre is saying he did to provide that to them. So fast forward a little bit, right? So now you have how many books now?
27.
27 books. He's an author of 27 books. Okay. So we have 27 books. He has this podcast with about how many subscribers you have, listeners on there?
Overall, it's been downloaded over 3 million times.
Over 3 million times, guys. All right. So this is why I'm saying this is a big deal to have him on today because he really, really knows his stuff. And there's a reason that I personally work with him because I don't take that lightly, right? I don't just say I want to work with just anybody. So he's really, really knows what he's got going on with that. So Dre, what's one thing that you would tell a business owner, maybe somebody, like me or somebody who's just starting out, about working on their game? Like what's some of the first things that you would tell them?
And we're talking a business person or an athlete?
Whichever one you want to answer. We can answer both if you want.
Okay, let's talk the business person first and we'll talk about the athlete. Okay. So for the business person out there, first of all, figuring out who is it that you want to serve. The first question you have to ask yourself is who is it that you want to serve? Who do you want to help? How do you want to help them? Those are the two questions you have to answer. So for me, when I was posting those basketball videos, once I decided to do it intentionally for the audience, right, after it stopped being about me, who am I helping? The answer was easy. I'm helping a basketball player who was where I used to be. Because when I started playing, my parents were not basketball players. I don't have any siblings who played basketball. Nobody in my neighborhood was helping me. So I was basically self-taught how to play ball. This was no Instagram, no YouTube, no programs, no training, none of that stuff. So what I was doing was teaching people the same stuff that nobody had ever taught me. So I was just helping the old version of myself, the younger version of myself. So for a business person, you have to ask yourself, who is that person you're helping? And then what are you going to help them do?
Right.
So what I started doing on YouTube was giving people the stuff that nobody had taught me. All right, here's a series of drills you can do to work on dribbling the ball. Because nobody had ever taught me that. I had developed that on my own. So I said, all right, players, I can shorten your learning curve. If you do the things that nobody ever taught me, you just start doing them now. So you'll be much further ahead from me. So that's the number one thing is figuring out who you want to serve, how you want to serve them. Yeah.
So I think that a lot of people think they have this idea, but as, I think as you talk through it and you work with other people, sometimes you figure out that idea isn't as concrete when you're speaking about it as it is in your head, which we've talked about this many a times during our sessions together where I'm like, well, I know what I want to say, but I can't quite I can see it and I can feel it, but I can't quite spit it out sometimes, right? So even as a marketing pro, I think it really helps to have somebody that you can talk to and help you answer these questions, right? And really just work through these things, even if it's a round table that you belong to or some kind of organizations. And you belong to some organizations along the way. You were president of Toastmasters at one point, right?
Yes, I was for a year and a half. I forgot about that.
Yeah, see, so so Dre's he's really a practice speaker. So, all right, so we're knowing who the audience, we know what we're selling, what it is that we're selling, all that kind of stuff. What's the next thing that you would tell a business owner?
I can go even a little bit deeper on the audience.
Sure.
Is once you start to put your work out there, you're going to get feedback from your audience, and that feedback could be could be crickets, could be silent. And that's your audience letting you know loud and clear that maybe you're not giving them exactly what they need. Maybe you're missing on certain points. So one thing you have to be open to, and this is something that I was doing, again, way back before we were talking branding or influencer marketing or any of that, I was engaging directly with my audience. And this is something that I still do to this day. So whenever I'm creating something new, one thing that I like to do is to talk directly to the people that I want to serve. So once I've figured out, okay, I'm going to create this program that's going to solve this problem, or maybe I don't even know what the program is going to be, I go to the people who are already attracted to what I'm doing, whether that's on YouTube, whether it's podcast listeners, whether it's people who have emailed me, whether it's people who are following me on social media, whether it's for the business owners out there, if you own a brick and mortar business, it's the people who are showing up to your business every day or every week and buying from you, and say to them, hey, can I sit down and just interview you? Can I ask you some questions just about what brought you here, what it is you're getting from us, and what you need from us? So simple questions that can apply to anyone. What is it that brought you into our world in the first place? If you own a pizza shop, why'd you come to this pizza shop? How'd you find us? Did you Google us? Did somebody tell you about us? Did you get a free sample somewhere? Did you hear me on the radio? Did you see my billboard? What is it that brought you into me in the first place? And then ask them, what is it about my material or my product or service that you're getting here that you can't get anywhere else? I'm not the only person with a podcast. I'm not the only athlete talking about mindset after playing sports. I'm not the only person to write a book. There's more than one pizza shop in the world. Why are you coming to my pizza shop? Why mine instead of anyone else's? And that right there, the answer to that question I found is really, really, really the key to your niche or niche, however you like to say that. Yeah. What is it that is bringing people into you and keeping them there with you? Then you can ask questions such as, right now, what are your biggest challenges? Because nobody, Misty, ever has it all perfect. I don't care how great they look. Nobody has it all perfect. Everybody always has a need. So ask them, what is your biggest challenge right now? What are the problems that you're facing? How have you tried to solve that challenge up to this point? They're going to tell you what they've tried already that did not work. So now you know, when they tell you what they tried that didn't work, you can ask them, well, what about it didn't work? If they say, well, I hired a coach before and it didn't work, or I hired 3 coaches and they didn't work. All right, tell me what was the problems with those coaches. Right. So now I know if I'm going to be a coach, what do I need to fix from what those other coaches messed up on? Right. Then you ask them, okay, if I was creating something right now from scratch to solve your problem, what would it look like? What would it feel like? What would it need to include? What was missing from the things that you tried that didn't work? What was missing that needs to be in the new ones? And then you can ask an open-ended question. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you want me to know? And people will tell you. One thing that I've learned over the years, especially when you're talking to your audience and your customers, is people love to talk about themselves. Yes. And the challenge in the world that we live in today is nobody gets a chance to talk about themselves because everybody else wants to talk about themselves. So when we finally come across someone who will actually shut up and listen, we will open up and talk. If you know that person's listening and they really want to help. Right. So if you start asking your audience, whoever they are, these questions, they will tell you exactly what you need to do. Right. Yeah, and I think a lot of people, they really shy away from that, right? So, well, I don't know if my customers really want to talk or if I really want to go there, but the value of information that you're going to get from having those 20, 30-minute conversations, whatever it might be, asking the questions that Dre just went over, is so, and it's really invaluable to your business, right? Just and going straight to the source. And a lot of people saying, oh, I don't know what my message is, or I don't know what their real problems is. I think it's this. But that's why it's important to have these conversations and really just have like a direct conversation with people and find out, okay, what is this? Plus, what are you missing, right? And so you can really get so much, we'll call them golden nuggets from that. So really quickly, I want to give a shout out to Jen Gerson. She is listening. She says, great interview and even better information. So thank you, Jen, for listening. If you have questions, drop them here in the comments and I will ask them over to Dre. So, all right. So we've talked a lot about, you've given so much great information so far. What are some ways that if someone wants to work with you, right? They're hearing this interview and they're like, oh man, like Dre's like I did. Dre's a person I want to work with. What are some ways that they can work with you to develop this even further? Okay. Who's this person though? I need to know a little bit more about who they are. So well, let's say people who watch this show are primarily small business owners, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, professionals like real estate agents. Right. So sort of like in that
I know that's sort of really diverse, but really kind of in that market.
It's good enough. So we have different levels that people can ascend to on kind of what we would call the value ladder for anyone who's making offerings. You can start off by just sampling some material. All right, it costs you nothing, just a little bit of your time and attention. So you're listening to me right now. So if I didn't lose you yet, then you can go to the next level, which is you can listen to the Work on Your Game audio masterclass. Y'all call it a podcast, so it's on all platforms: Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, things like that. I write articles, so you can read our emails that we send out multiple times per week. I put videos on YouTube. Those come out every single day. Then the next level is you can get one of the books. I mean, a book is going to cost you, $25. So you can try a book out, read some of the material in there, see if that connects with you. The next level is you can join our program, which is called Work on Your Game University, which we actually just launched, which is the program that allows us to take the mental tools that you need to get to the top 1% in sports, and we teach you how those tools translate to your business and to your life. And those 4 principles that I talked about: discipline, confidence, mental toughness, and personal initiative, we're going to translate those into mindset, strategy, accountability, and action. 4-step program for you to get the outcome that you want, whether you're an entrepreneur, an athlete, a student. Maybe you don't know what you want to do. You don't know where you want to be in life right now. You're just trying to figure it out. In Work on Your Game University, there's not only the information, of course, but also we're going to make sure you have the accountability, a strategy in place so that you can have the confidence. The accountability will engage your mental toughness, the action to engage the personal initiative, and there's a community so that you can connect with other like-minded individuals who are also serious about working on their game and taking their games to the next level. So you can not only help and get support, but you can be helped and be supported by other people. Now, you could try to do that on the internet randomly, but I wouldn't suggest it. I would suggest you join a community where there are people who are already on the same wavelength. So we cut down the learning curve for you, shorten your time, and get you where you need to be with the right type of people.
Perfect. So I want people to really understand who Crew Dre is. So I want to try something.
Okay.
Can you open up a random page on your book, your book? Just a random page.
This works.
Let's see what's there. He does this on his Instagram all the time,
Yes,
by the day.
Page 123.
123. What's on page 123? What are we talking about here?
It says, it's 3 points actually.
Okay.
It says, remember, you want me to read them?
Sure.
Okay. Number 1, in being a fan of your favorite athletes and celebrities, never expect more from them than you expect from yourself. This doesn't mean that you lower your expectation from the home team's upcoming season. What it means is, number 2, raise the standards of what you expect you to do anytime you think of expecting more from someone else. And number 3, imagine that your life were on TV, your every move being watched and scrutinized. There's a camera on you, like right now, following you and every action that you take, every facial expression, every conversation. What would your fans say about you? Would you be criticized? And how much of it will be accurate? How long would people watch your show before deciding that you weren't even interesting enough to pay attention to? That's actually the end of chapter 6, and the next page is chapter 7, which is about go-getting, personal initiative.
See? So Dre's style is very, I think the point of what he's talking about is that when you hear him speak, he's very clear on what he's saying. He knows who he's talking to. He knows the pain points, and he has studied the material, and he articulates that very well. Now, that doesn't just come because he has it just sitting on the top of his head. He's worked on his own game, right, to get to that point. So I think, a lot of other things that people want to hear about these days are podcasts. Should I start one, right? That's a big question that a lot of people are asking. So do you want to address that a little bit? You mentioned your podcast, how many listeners you have, downloads. It's really impressive. Is it still relevant? Should people still be using it as a channel? And who's it for? Who's it not for?
Wow, well.
A lot of questions.
Well, yeah, first of all, the question is, should I start a podcast? Most people are not waiting for someone to tell them. A lot of people are just starting podcasts. Okay. So podcasts are really hot right now. Back in 2005, it was blogging. Then it became Facebooking. Then it was YouTubing. Now it's podcasts. So a lot of people have podcasts now. Some of them good, some of them not. Should somebody start one? Well, it depends. Why do you want to start a podcast? So that's the first question that I would have to ask. What is it that you want to get out into the world? And you can do that through whichever format you want. Right now we have 3 formats: written format, video format, audio format. And there are a lot of people who record their quote-unquote podcast as a video, put it on YouTube and call it a podcast. But either way, question is, who do you want to serve? Why do you want to serve them? How do you want to help them? What problems are you helping resolve? If you do decide to start a podcast, the questions you're going to have to answer is, first of all, again, thinking from the position of your audience member. What is this show? How is this show helping somebody? What problem do they have that they would need to come to you And then would they tell anybody else about it? Is it good enough that they would spread it by word of mouth? Then are you going to be consistent? Consistency in terms of your message, in terms of the formatting of it, the structure of your show. Are you going to have guests on your show? Is it going to be just you talking? How are you going to deliver to your audience?
Right.
And then is it going to be consistent in terms of when you put it out? Is it once a week? Is it 3 times a week? And can you create as consistently as you plan on putting your show out? If your show is going to be solo, can you deliver? Can you come up with that much material to make sure you keep delivering? If you're going to have guests, who's going to do the work to find those guests? Are you going to find guests who are going to be interesting on your show? Who's going to do the background research to make sure you ask some actual good questions so you're not asking your guests the same questions they get asked every time they get interviewed, if they've been interviewed a lot. So these are all questions that you need to answer. And I actually have done a couple episodes of my show talking about these very things. So if you're going to have a podcast, what you need to have in place in order to do it.
Yeah, and I think the point of consistency is so important because, I talk about for many years now, the 3 C's of social media marketing: content, conversation, and consistency. And that can really translate into any method of marketing that you're using. But, we see a lot of people, oh my God, I'm going to start a podcast. And so they go and they buy the equipment, right? Oh, okay, I spent all this money. I got dropped all this money on Amazon. I got the shipments coming. Boom, I have my home studio. Okay, cool. So now they have that. Then they're like, okay, well now I'm fired up, right? I'm going to create my first few episodes. I've got somebody on Fiverr or whoever who's going to do my editing for me. Like, I'm ready to go. And then the newness wears off and it sort of starts to just fall behind, right? People get busy. Maybe they don't keep up with it. You go to their podcast. They haven't posted in like weeks or months.
Podcast graveyard. That's what we call
it.
The
podcast graveyard, right? It falls into the podcast graveyard. So we talk a lot, and you've talked about this as day 2. Right?
Day 3.
Day 3. I'm sorry.
The
third day.
Is what we call it.
This third day concept, which you want to briefly explain sort of what that is.
Yeah, you just explained it. So third day is pretty simple. It's whenever we start something new, we get excited about it. It's a brand new thing, especially something we do voluntarily.
Right.
If you chose to do it. Going to the gym, starting a podcast, blogging, getting more active on social media, whatever it is. The first day we feel excited because it's brand new. The second day, where it's not as new, but it's still pretty new. When you get a new car, the second time you drive it still smells new, right? It's not dirty yet. By that third day, that's when the newness has worn off, the exact phrase that you just used. The newness is worn off, the novelty is gone, but now there's still work that needs to be done.
Right.
And this is when you figure out if you're actually going to be a professional or not. And while the definition in the dictionary of professional is about somebody who gets paid to do something as their main occupation, what a real professional is, according to Work on Your Game philosophy, is person who shows up and does a job every time, regardless of how they're feeling. That's what a professional is really about, because you need to treat a profession like a profession before you're getting paid for it.
Right.
A lot of times in life, you don't get paid until you are delivering. There are some places where they pay you first and then you have to deliver. But a lot of, like in the NBA, for example, they give you the contract before you prove you can play.
Right.
But a lot of jobs in life, you have to deliver first, then the money shows up. So that's what being a professional is really about. So when it comes to podcasting, as with social media, as with if you decide to write a book, anything that you want to do that you don't get the money until you deliver, you have to treat that like a profession up front. You don't wait until you get money, then you start showing up. No, it's who you're being comes first, then you do the stuff, then you get the reward.
Right. And I think that's a really good point. So that's why a lot of times we also talk on the show about if you're going to do something, whatever it is, if it's social media and you're picking which channels you're going to use, if it's deciding if you're going to have a podcast, a YouTube, whatever it is, if you're going to write a book, it's choosing something and getting really good at it, like really drilling down on it, getting really good at it, showing up consistently, figuring out your content, having those conversations, like really building your brand, and then you can expand. I think a lot of times people fall prey to whatever is, the trending thing that I need to be doing, and so they sort of hop on this train and that train and that train, and what ends up happening is when people actually look you up, they don't see, this is why we talk about the consistency, it looks like you haven't been there for a while. So now they're thinking, does this person really know what they're doing? Are they still in business? That kind of stuff starts to become an issue. So Tommy, I don't know how much time we have. Do we have another interview coming right? About 5 more minutes. All right, so we have 5 more minutes, Dre. So what else have we not covered that you're dying to let people know as of right now, or that's coming to mind?
To piggyback on something that you just said, when people first hear of you, somebody first heard of you, or say you're on a show like this, or you go and speak somewhere, or your name just gets randomly dropped, or someone goes in a bookstore or Amazon, they see your book and they're thinking about it, but they don't want to pull the trigger on that $20 purchase. They're going to Google you. They're going to look you up. Let's see what this person is doing. Do they have a website? When's the last time they posted something? Or their last post was 6 months ago? Okay. Forget it. They forget about you.
Right.
Or they go look up your podcast. When was your last episode? Or they look up your YouTube. When was the last time you published? If they see that you're consistently publishing, they're like, oh, this person is actually in the game doing their thing.
Right.
And if they see that you're not publishing, then they're going to assume that maybe you're just not around anymore, and they're going to move on. So it's actually better to not start at all. Because if you're not going to stay consistent, don't start at all. Because when someone looks you up, they're going to just dismiss you. But if you start, you got to keep it going. You have to be consistent, right? So that people know what you're delivering. They know that you're delivering it consistently and you're still in the game.
Right. And I think that's what we're talking about with the mental toughness, that mental discipline that you talk about so much, is that people really fall into that trap of getting excited and then third day and then for whatever reason. So it might not be just discipline. It might not just be that you're not excited anymore. It might be something like imposter syndrome, where you're like, man, can I really do this? Or if I keep doing this, are people going to find out I'm a fraud? So there's so many different things that go into it. There really is so much to the mental part of marketing and working on your game, as Dre says, and has built an entire brand around. So I think these are really things that people are, when they come to Dre, it's because these are the things that they know that they're going to get this value out of. And so whether you pay him or you're just starting out listening to the podcast like I did, you're going to get a ton of value from this individual. So with that, Dre, how can people get your content?
How can people get my content? Well, if you like reading, then go to workonmygame.com. You can get on our email list for free. You'll get every article that I write. I write a lot. At least 3 times a week, you're going to get an email from us. I'm on all the social media platforms, so whichever one you like, everything except TikTok, I'm on it. So just look my name up. I'm on every single platform. I'm active on all of them. I publish every day on all of them. I have a daily podcast like we talked about already. It is called Work on Your Games on Spotify, Apple, SoundCloud, all of that. And when you're ready to go to the next level, you can join us at Work on Your Game University, and the link is workonyourgameuniversity.com. You're not going to remember any of those, so just look up my name, Dre Baldwin, type in the platform you like, and we can start right there. And if you like what you see there, then I'll tell you how to get to the next level. Simple as that.
Right, and we have his website is actually scrolling right here on the bottom of the ticker of the screen, workonyourgame.com. So
Work on Your Game University.
Oh, university. That's the
yeah,
program.
We own that domain too, but Work on Your Game.
Yeah, well, I mean, and to his point, you just search Dre Baldwin and it's going to pop up.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'll get you can go down an entire rabbit hole of his content, by the way, because there is it is so much. I was listening to your podcast this morning, the one you just released about the university, and you were saying that you don't know for sure because there's not like an aggregator that keeps track of this, but you probably have the most content
of anybody on the internet.
Anybody on the internet. And I would believe that.
Yeah,
I would believe
that. Nobody has me beat.
It's amazing. It's amazing what he does.
Only maybe Gary V with the repurposing. That's it. But he cheated.
He
repurposed his. I'm talking about original content. Nobody has me beat.
Yeah, he does. It really is something fresh every time you hook in there. So
yes.
I want to thank Dre for being on here. I know we're running out of time. There's lots of people coming up. We got election day tomorrow, so it's super busy here in the studio. But I want to thank you for being here for another Marketing Monday. I want to thank Dre for being a guest. You want to close out with anything in particular? Anything you got to say to the people?
Working your games for 3 specific types of people. Number 1, the people who understand that they need more game. Number 2, people who know they have game yet you're not getting recognized for it. Number 3, you have game, you feel like you're not putting it out there well enough. So if any one of those 3 is your problem, come find us at Work on Your Game and let's get to working.
Yeah, and I can testify to how helpful Dre's work really is. So thank you again for being here. I want to thank everyone for joining us for another Marketing Monday. We will be back next week. Any specific comments or topics or anything, questions that you have, drop them in the comments here, and we will check that out. And I hope you guys have a great week. Thanks for joining us.
There you go.